be seated. So I began my life in Washington State. I was born just north of Seattle. And I was ordained in the Diocese of Olympia. That covers all of western Washington. And my first church was out on the Washington Peninsula. So it was in 1983 that I made what I and my family called the big move from the far northwest corner of Washington down to Fort Walton Beach, Florida, lying between Panama City and Pensacola. I hadn't been there very long when there was a clergy retreat. It was my first one in my new diocese. The camp where it was held was just outside of Mobile, Alabama. Like I said, I was new in the diocese and looking to meet people, especially my colleagues. And I walked up to a group who were talking and laughing and joking together. I listened. And after a while, I realized that they were laughing about the way members of an African American congregation in the city would dress up in suits and dresses to go to church. I was mortified. I had never been exposed to anything like that in my life at that point. I was still very young. I was horrified. But mostly I was silent. I was silent because I was afraid. What was I afraid of? To be honest, I'm not really sure at this point. Afraid of not fitting in, I guess, though this was definitely not the sort of group I wanted to fit in with. I was born and raised an Episcopalian, after all. So my mottos were, don't make waves. And if you can't say something nice, don't say anything at all. I was afraid because I didn't know what to say or what to do. So I said and did nothing. It seemed safer that way. I tell you that little story because I want you to understand, if you don't already, how fear works. It's not a horrifying, overwhelming presence as much as it is a soft and friendly voice whispering in your ear that you are just one person. You can't change things. You don't want to make trouble. You don't want to bring embarrassment to yourself or to others. Fear speaks kindly and gently. It warns us that we have something to lose. And so our natural response is to try to find ways to protect ourselves from that loss. The thing is, when we do so, we are accepting the basic premise of fear. namely that we do indeed have something to lose. But is that so? Is that so? Do not be afraid, Jesus says. In fact, he says that an awful lot. I did a quick count through a concordance and found something like 20 times in the 4 Gospels he is saying, do not be afraid. Fear is the main thing that blocks us from experiencing the life of faith. Not a blind faith. Not a faith that hides its head in the sand, for that isn't faith at all. It's just willful ignorance. Faith confronts fear and refuses to accept easy answers. And that's because faith does not accept the basic premise of fear. Faith says we have nothing to lose. If you look again at today's gospel, Jesus provides a reason why we don't have to be afraid. Do not be afraid, little flock, he says, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Faith says that because it is God's deepest desire to give us all good things, then we cannot lose. Oh, really, Mr. Preacher? That's quite a claim to make. Yeah, yes, it is. But let's talk about the things that really matter to us. Can't we lose our health? Well, faith says that we will undoubtedly get sick, and perhaps painfully and seriously so. But faith also says that healing and wholeness are blessings always available to us, even when a cure might not be. Well then, can't we lose our lives? And faith says that we will undoubtedly die. But life belongs to God, and thus will live forever and rise again out of the grave. Do we fear losing love? Faith says that God is love, and so love never ends, even though we may forget that we are loved. Do we fear losing friends or family? Faith says that we may very well find ourselves alone, but that God will never abandon us. I could go on, but instead I just ask each of you, what fear haunts your life at this moment? Can you pick one thing that you treasure and imagine that you cannot lose it? What freedom would that bring? How would that change your words and actions? What would a faithful response to that fear be? There are no guarantees There is no sure bet, but there are two things. First, there is hope. Faith leaves room for hope in this world, and fear does not. And second, there is the church, the community of faith, this community of faith. We have each other. So there's always someone to remind you when you forget. Always someone to find you when you are lost. Always someone to pray for you when you have lost your voice. I don't have to tell you that there is so much fear in our country and in our world today. Fear of the other. Fear of losing a job and not being able to pay the rent or put food on the table. Fear of misguided people with guns. Fear of not succeeding. So many fears. Where there is fear, hope dies. Affliction can shut us off from light and love, or it can open us up to grasp life in all its heartbreak and joy. It can lead us to reorder our priorities and become passionately and deeply involved in the world and in the lives of those who are around us. Once I was silent. Perhaps you bear the weight of such silences as well. If we don't want to be left with nothing but the pain of what might have been, then we need to speak our love today. We need to share our hope today. We need to be the church today and work for the future that God has promised is surely coming. Don't be fearful. Be faithful. Don't be fearful. Be faithful. Say that with me. Don't be fearful. Be faithful.